Hi, my name's Isaac, and this is a brand new Mazda Miata Grand Touring retractable fastback. And today, I'm gonna review it for you guys. Mazda has graciously lent me this Miata for the week, and I have had so much fun with it. I cannot wait to take you guys on a drive and to tell you about all the features. Admittedly though, I'm sad because two of the best features on this Miata are slowly disappearing in the car industry. Dang, that was some good sizzle. Starting out up front on the Miata, the first thing I want to talk about is the color. Now, admittedly, I didn't know what color Miata Mazda was going to loan to me this week, but I was really excited when I saw this pull up. But I didn't know the name of the color. My dad was with me and he looked at it and said, "What would you call that? Like olive?" And I said, "Oh no, Dad, it's going to be named something really weird." And it is. This particular color is called Zircon Sand, and it's all new for 2023. Now, on an overcast day like today, it really does look kind of olive green, but in direct sunlight, it looks more tan. Overall, it's a really cool color that I wanted to specifically point out. Moving to the headlights, you'll have full LEDs with LED daytime running lights and incandescent turn signals. And then if we move to the top of the windshield, there is a camera up there for Mazda's safety technology that is included on this car. And of course, this has the signature happy Mazda front fascia design, though personally I think it kind of looks like a devious catfish that's excited that he got away with some sort of crime. Now, one of those features that I mentioned up top that I was disappointed was slowly disappearing from the car industry is right here. This is a retractable fastback. That basically just means it's a convertible, but it doesn't look like it's a convertible.
Wow!
I know. I have always loved this feature on cars. As a kid, I remember thinking this was the coolest thing in the world. And as a slightly bigger kid with a driver's license now, well, it's still pretty far up there for me. What really stinks is that affordable hardtop convertibles used to be far more common. Just 15 years ago, Volkswagen made one, Volvo, heck, even Pontiac made one. But now, if you're looking for a brand new hardtop, apart from this Miata, you'd have to step all the way up to the C8 Corvette, which is nearly double the price of this car. And convertibles in general are far less common than they used to be. Moving underneath the hood in the Miata, it's powered by Mazda's Sky Active 2-liter 4-cylinder, making 181 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. The EPA estimates for fuel economy on this car are 26 city, 35 highway, and in my time with this car, I averaged around 32.4. And that engine is paired to a 6-speed manual transmission. This is the other thing that I'm disappointed to see become less common in the car industry. I love driving stick, but I don't really get the opportunity to do it very often because most cars are automatic nowadays. And that's not to say the automatic coupe version of the Miata is bad. It's still a fun car. But this convertible manual transmission Miata is objectively more fun to drive. Moving to the profile of the Miata MX-5, starting down here at the wheels and tires, you'll get 205 45R Bridgestones around these 17-inch wheels. And then you will have a turn signal indicator light right there, body-colored mirror cap with blind spot monitoring incorporated in. And then you'll have keyless entry right here. And Well, there's not a ton to talk about on this car because it's so tiny, but as we move to the rear here, you'll interestingly get a shark fin and a traditional antenna. Then your Mazda badge, MX-5, and then Sky Active G. It doesn't actually say Miata on here, which is interesting. And then moving a little bit further down, you'll have a backup camera and then dual exhaust. Now, if we grab the key very quickly, it's a pretty standard Mazda key, nothing to write home about. Lock, unlock, panic, and the ability to pop the trunk. Moving into the trunk here, there's actually a decent bit of room, far more than I thought there'd be with the retractable fastback. So I'm actually quite impressed that they've allowed for this much space. Let's take a quick look at the inside. Hey guys, just jumping in here real quick to let you know that I have merch. I have a variety of t-shirts on my website, beanies, and I've spent thousands of dollars on these 3 professional models to show you guys what my hoodies look like. Wow, look at how good they model. Anyway, if you guys are interested, you can follow the link in the description below. Moving to the interior of the Miata, I love how simplistic it is in here. Everything is just laid out super easily, and it's also really cozy. Let's start here on the door panel. So this is body color, then you'll get this nice stitching right here. Down here, you'll have your window controls, lock and unlock, and your mirror controls. Right here, you'll have traction control off and lane keeping assist off. And then moving up to the steering wheel, it is very comfortable, very nicely wrapped. You'll have volume right here, channel changing right here, and Bluetooth settings, as well as cruise control settings right there. Now, this is actually a digital screen. The other two are physical gauges, your tach and speedometer, but if we hit info right here, that will change the layout. It's a pretty simplistic screen, but I do think it's cool that it's incorporated in. Now there is one other very tiny screen here. Inside the tach, there is a little screen right there that's going to tell you what gear you're in, and it's going to recommend upshifting or downshifting. So as we continue to the rest of the interior right here, we'll talk about the infotainment. Now, it's not actually flickering. If I move back here, that helps the refresh rate just a little bit. That's a camera issue, not a screen issue. So it is a touchscreen while you're in park, though, unfortunately, once you put it in drive, it locks itself out of being a touchscreen. Mazda wants drivers to pay attention to the road, and so they've invented this little dial system that you can click between apps, and it gives you feedback so you know where you're at, and then you just click down on it, and that's going to take you to wherever you want to go. I like this in concept. In execution on this Miata, I'm not a fan. Now, last week I actually had a CX-90 and I loved this system on there. I think it worked better than a touchscreen because the CX-90 is such a large SUV and the screen is so far away that it was easier to just rest my arm and move the dial, and I very quickly got the muscle memory down of where to go and what apps I wanted to do, and I could still keep my eyes fixed on the road and I could just see out of my peripheral vision where I was going. So I thought it was great. But here on the Miata, if I want to rest my arm here to change an app or change a song, I have to rest my arm on the cup holders, and that's really uncomfortable if there's cups in it. So that means I kind of have to move my arm like this, and that is not convenient or comfortable. And so I'm not a huge fan of that. I wish the screen was just a touchscreen. It would just be much easier to use the CarPlay from here while I'm driving. And I think it becomes a little bit more of a distraction, just in my opinion, here on the Miata. Now, if we move further down here, you'll have your hazards, your push-button start, and then your climate controls, and then the aforementioned top button. Then you'll have heated seats, which are always welcome. 2 USBs, and a slot for an SD card, because this does have factory navigation built in as well. I did mention the backup camera before, and the way to access that is we're going to put the clutch in, push down, and then all the way over and up. That's going to give us the backup camera view. That's also super nice on modern manual cars, because you know you're in reverse. You're like, I'm definitely in this gear, because the backup camera will pop up. Now, it's not a super high quality backup camera, and the guiding lines do not move, but it's at least nice to have. And there's a couple of different settings you can mess with: brightness, contrast, tint. I think that's so funny. Make the lines move. I don't need to mess with tint, but it does at least have that. So as we continue down here, parking brake, a little tiny storage area, and I mean little tiny. It is not big at all. The aforementioned cup holders and a lockable storage box back here. Now, there is no glove box in this car, so that lockable bin is basically where you'd have to put all your valuable stuff that you're looking to keep in here, and it is a little bit more spacious than this guy down here. And I do like that it gives you that option right there, because that's not super common. This has a Bose sound system in here. It is a 9-speaker system, and it sounds incredible. Fortunately, I can't play you any music due to copyright reasons, but I can assure you it is really, really nice. And part of that system involves speakers in the headrests. I don't often review vehicles with speakers in the headrests, but I even more rarely review little coupes like this with speakers in the headrests, and I can attest it sounds fantastic in here. And then finally, moving up here, you'll have an auto-dimming mirror and one little dome light. But that pretty much wraps up everything in the interior here. I mean, there's not a lot, but that's great. I don't need a lot. It's very nice and simple, like I said before. Let's take this thing for a spin. All right, driving the new Miata. I guess this would probably be a bad time to say that I don't actually know how to drive stick. I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be funny? But yeah, I mean, this car has been such an experience for me. I mean, I really rarely get to spend time with cars like this, and that's probably a product of the fact that they just don't make a lot of cars like this anymore. And I've done the Supra and I've done the new Z, but those were both automatic, and they do make those now in manual, but it's just not the same experience. And I'd argue those cars are in a different weight class, as it were, because they have a lot more horsepower. They're a little bit bigger cars, and this is a smaller offering. I would compare this probably closer to something like the Subaru BRZ or the Toyota 86, though both of those do not offer a convertible configuration, and both of those are the same vehicle. You know, honestly, it's not particularly fast. It's not gonna get up to speed super quickly, but this is so much fun to drive. The handling for this car is fantastic. It grips the road really well, and the turning radius is awesome as well. It's so tiny. I feel so snug in here, and I think that's another reason I love it so much, because in addition to the manual transmission, where I feel like I'm in more control of the car, because it's so small, it just feels like it's more maneuverable and zippy, and I love it. In fact, I had a moment in this car the other night while I was driving, and I don't have moments in the vehicles that I drive to review, at least not a lot that I can remember. But I was driving down this lonely section of highway, and I happen to believe that this generation of the Miata bears at least a passing resemblance to the Mach-5 from Speed Racer. And I grew up watching the old cartoon. The Wachowski movie is pretty weird, so I mostly stuck to the cartoon growing up. But as I was driving this, I'm flying down the highway, and I just started singing the Speed Racer theme song. You know, he's up and flying as he guns the car around the track. And as I was singing it, I started getting emotional because it was so much fun to drive, and I just don't get that experience often. You know, mostly I'm driving pickup trucks, which are fun, or big SUVs, and I was like, wow, I hope my kids someday can experience something like this. I wish more people of this generation could experience a drive like this, because most of my peers do not know how to drive manual, and they won't end up spending their money on a little convertible because they're looking for either a bigger SUV or a more consumer-focused, Honda Civic or something like that. And it made me sad and happy, and it was just an overwhelmed feeling of emotions. And it's funny because I was acknowledging in the moment, I'm like, oh, I'm having a moment. Like this is something with this car that I am not used to, and it was so cool. And I gotta commend Mazda for keeping this around. You know, I cannot recommend this car enough to folks. I absolutely love it. The driving experience is fantastic, and it's just so much fun. The power top is so much fun. I love showing people the excitement on their faces is great, because it's so rare nowadays that some people are even like, I didn't know cars could do that. And I'm like, wow, you know, and it's just wonderful. It translates to an unlimited amount of smiles per gallon, because as I've been driving this over the last week, I don't think there's been a moment that I haven't had a giant dumb grin on my face. All right, I guess I gotta have the top off kind of obligatorily for a little bit. It's gotten a tiny bit warmer today, so I'm like, all right, before it gets too cold, I can take the top off and talk about it a little bit while I don't have the roof on. But I'm gonna guess it's a lot windier and you won't be able to hear me as well. The quick portion of it is that it drives fantastic. It's even more fun with the roof off. Well, that is just about gonna wrap up my review of this Miata, a car I will not soon forget. Truly an unparalleled driving experience. It might not be fast, but it sure as heck is fun. Before I go though, I'd like to mention that I am a Christian, and if you have any prayer requests, you can leave those in the comments section below. And lastly, I'd like to close out on a weekly scriptural reading. This week, I'm in the book of Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon, chapter 3, verse 1. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. And then Solomon continues on by listing times for different things, because he's seen so much throughout his life. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Take care.